David Heurtel with you on this sunny but chilly Thursday morning. Thank you for joining us. New numbers from La Presse show that the number of encampments being dismantled in the Ville-Marie borough, basically downtown, are 4 times higher than what they were in 2021. These numbers were calculated by the publication. However, as boroughs do not have a way to keep track how many encampments are dismantled in the area, Mayor Valérie Plante responded to the numbers by saying that these encampments have a high crime rate, a high fire risk, and that many inside of it do not want to be there, as they want a roof over their head instead. Sam Watts is CEO of the Welcome Hall Mission and a good friend of CJD 800. Sam, good morning.
Well, good morning to you, David.
So how frustrating is this and these kinds of statements from the mayor a few weeks after this bungled public library stunt? We're trying to get the homeless out of there. That was crushed. And now we know that we don't have the housing for these people in the encampments, yet we're dismantling. So can you make sense of this for us?
It's very difficult to make complete sense of it. And part of the story here, David, is that the mayor is not entirely wrong, but it's only part of the story. Mm-hmm. If you know anything about some of these encampments, nobody gets up in the morning and says, "Hey, I'd like to be homeless today." Mm-hmm. There's nobody who has that in their career plan. I want to try homelessness as a career choice. So this is the people who end up doing what I call urban camping are people who have very little other option available to them. And so we have to start with that everyone has the basic human right to housing, the same way as we have a right to health care in Canada. So it's a human right. Now, what that means is that everybody should be able to be provided with a roof over their head and 4 walls, a secure, affordable, accessible place to live. And after all, this is Canada, and it's 2023. We're one of the wealthiest countries in the world. We should be able to do that. So what we're looking at with encampments is a systemic failure. And, the short-term solution isn't to send people into a more precarious situation than they're already in. It's to work really hard with people who find themselves in those situations in a tent or under a bridge or in a culvert and help them get back into housing as quickly as possible. And I think that's where we're missing the completeness of a plan. And so we stop short because we'll say, well, of course, it's dangerous, there's a fire risk, and all of those things are certainly true, but that's not the end of the story. We need to do better because, after all, we can do better.
So this year, one of the biggest stories of 2023 in my mind is how housing has become a top political story and a top political issue. We saw Pierre Poilievre federally turn it into a winning issue for him as he's riding high in the polls based on the cost of living, but also on the housing issue. We've seen how provincially Legault government has kept fumbling on this, and it's part of their loss of popularity, especially the housing minister, François Duranceau, who's been doing horrible on this file. Mayor Valérie Plante has had to respond on the lack of housing starts, affordable housing, social housing in Montreal. So it's a big issue. We've seen a lot of announcements, Trudeau government, Legault government, Valérie Plante. On the ground, Sam, are you seeing any concrete changes in the right direction on the social housing front?
Not yet. But you've pointed to a couple of things that do give me reason for optimism, which is that all of a sudden, I have to tell you, if I rewind the clock to maybe 5 years ago, I would have these same conversations with politicians. It might have been from different parties or might have been different ministers, but I would get what I would call a polite hearing. Yeah, Sam, we know about this.
I've done those.
You've probably done the polite hearing.
Yeah.
And, we'll look into it. I'll have my staff look into it. But now that's not the case. We're getting a lot more than just a polite hearing. And the push that I'm doing when I have conversations with ministers is to say, there's things we need to do right now. And if we do them right now, we'll reduce the harm level that's being caused at the moment. And there are some things that we can do right away. That's not going to take the building of more social housing in 10 years' time. We need to do some things right away, like rent supplements for people who can't afford to pay the rent, and freeing up housing resources that are out there but are just tied up or not being used or not being renovated properly. The OMH in Montreal has apartments that are not renovated properly, so nobody's living in them. Well, let's fix that. There are things that we can do to fix right away, and we need to at the same time begin the process that got us into this soup 20 or 30 years ago of focusing on providing more purpose-built rental housing that's affordable. And if we do that, then we'll get back to where we should be. Canada's got one of the lowest rates of social housing stock in the G20. That shouldn't be. And we can fix that. We just can't fix it overnight.
So we have a big announcement, you and I, Sam, to make this morning on CJD.
Yes, we do.
Massive announcement. So I'm starting what I call the 12 days of Heurtel on CJD 800. I'll be filling in today and tomorrow for Elias, and the next 2 weeks I'll be filling in for Aaron and Natasha on Montreal Now. And I've been doing this. I've been very privileged. I've been handed the reins at Montreal Now during the holidays for the past 3 years, and the last two, we've done this show on the last show of the year. So the last show of the year is going to be next Friday, December 29th, and you've been joining me for the last show of the year on Montreal Now to do what we call, well, what I like to call putting the focus on great people doing great work. Tell us more about that.
Well, it's going to be a great show, I think, David. So let's keep the word great going. We're going to talk to people in Montreal that many of your listeners might not have heard of, but people who are doing extraordinary things, in many cases in the shadows, but helping people. One of the things that I think is so great about human beings is we have this capacity for kindness and generosity. And so we're going to be focusing this show on all kinds of good stuff that's happening in our city and in a few places outside of our city, too. I'm going to talk to one guy in Toronto who's doing some really creative things around helping people who are vulnerable get jobs that pay them well. So now they not just get a job, but get a job that takes them, lifts them right out of poverty. So there are some things that I think are interesting and that may be interesting to your listeners as we approach the end of the year. We might as well talk about good stuff, right?
Absolutely. Always enjoy this. So you'll be joining me in studio and focusing on great Montrealers and great Canadians doing some good work that needs to be highlighted. Sam, always a pleasure, and looking forward to next Friday on Montreal Now for great people doing great work.
It'll be fun, David.
It will. Thank you so much. Sam Watts of Welcome Hall Mission.